So let's see, we've talked about ecosystem processes, reading the land, tools on the land, some of the environmental keys we're missing. Let's add the last piece here, just a little bit more detail. Holism, that fourth key. We've got to manage looking at the whole picture. It's very simple, but we have to do it. We're told if you want to really achieve some goals, write them down or be able to really explain them to somebody. Otherwise, they just kind of ramble around here and you never get them done. Managing land, people, and money, you need to have it written down. Who are the decision makers? Who truly makes choices and who just affects them? And we need them, but who makes decisions and who does not at different levels in the farm management. We need to be clear on the resource base we've got. What land do we have? What equipment do we have? We also have to be real clear on what money we have or what can be generated. This is the whole we're managing. So we call it the whole under management. Now, once you know who those decision makers are, it's their job to describe the context. Alan uses a story now. He says, can I light a fire? I'm going to strike a match. Can I light a fire? Yes, no. Don't you need to know a little bit of context? You know, am I going to go have a campfire or am I going to burn the house down? We need a context. The decision makers need to be clear on their context they want to operate within. They need to know the quality of life they want. Your camera's shut off, by the way, which is fine with me. I just noticed it. I almost didn't tell you. The decision makers need to know what is the quality of life they truly want, and that resource base they're managing, what does it have to be like far into the future to sustain them? So we describe it, we map it on the land. This is the landscape, this is how the ecosystem processes need to be working, this is the quality of life we want. That's the context. Then we make decisions toward it. If we don't have that context, we don't know what direction we're going. We don't know where we'll end up. That's the driver to keeping us online. This is not new. Many businesses that are non-agricultural do this in some way or form to be really on task with what they're about. But we in agriculture don't do that as well. So our values really drive the actions that need to be taken. So should we move to this breed of cattle? Should we buy this new tool? Should we bring a new employee in? Should we take a vacation? Should we do whatever? Those are all actions. Will they keep us within the context? Otherwise, if we just live action to action to action, we don't know where we'll end up financially, career-wise, with the farm or not later. So we've got a context. Conventional decision making, we usually look at research, learning from others. Peer pressure, adults have it. We put it on each other. Cost-benefit analysis, we use all these things to make a choice. Well, we keep doing those things. But at the same time, we need to do some context checks. You've got a context, you're going to take an action. Well, here's some questions that have shaken out over time to help really make sure, will this action keep me within that context? If you're honest about the context and it really means something to the decision makers. There's 4 related to finances. Financial weak link. This really helps know, am I spending the money in the right place? Or should I spend it over here? And I could leave it at that, but I'll give you one example. If you have livestock grazing and had that kind of an operation, you have crops and you have other things to spend on, should I spend on raising more grass first, having more animals first, or a higher quality of animal first, or on marketing the animal first? Well, if I've got all the grass I need and I've got a pretty good animal, but I can't get it sold at a decent price, I shouldn't spend $1 to take a grazing planning class to learn how to grow more grass before I go figure out how to market better. And if I don't like marketing, then I need to hire you to help me do it. But that's where the first dollar needs to be spent. So it's called a financial chain of production. How do we take a solar dollar from the sun, run it through the land, create a resource through an animal or straight as a cash crop, grain, and market it? That's a solar dollar. generated from the sun. It's not a paper dollar with no backing behind it. It's not a mineral dollar from oil or gas. It's a solar dollar. That's what truly sustains nations. This helps leave it at the point, where do I spend my money first? This one, what's the source of the money I'm going to spend and how am I using it? Is that within my context? Another one, if I spend this, should I spend it on this action versus that? Which one gets me the biggest marginal reaction, the biggest bang for the pound, right? The biggest bang for the buck. Or if I have enterprises, I've got egg layers and chickens and ag tourism and a whatever, which enterprise makes me the money and which ones lose the money? We take a hard look at finances and we look at each enterprise. Here's its income and here's its direct expenses. No overheads, so that I can truly see which ones are making me the money. The accountant wants all the overheads portioned out in there. That's accounting, looking back, or for taxes. We need to look forward at financial planning and say, are we spending this money in the right enterprises or the right mix of enterprises? Which ones are making the money to cover these overheads we've developed? Those are 4 context checks related to financial. Coupled with non-financial. Do we ask often enough, if I take this action, am I really addressing the cause? If there's a problem there? If there's no problem, this doesn't even apply. But if there's a problem and you're addressing the solution, well, it's only a short-term answer at best. So I've got all this water running off the hill and I put in some check dams at the bottom of each gully. Addressing the cause or the effect? The effect of water running. I should be getting it to soak in on the hill. Maybe the money should be spent up there. How do I improve management of land so that the land up there will receive the water better and not run? But these are the kind of questions we need to ask. Cause and effect. Also, we talked about a financial weak link chain of production, but with people, if I take this action, is it going to destroy a relationship I have with you that I need? You're a decision maker in my business, or you're a resource person, we really need your support. Well, if I take that action, I need to realize if it's going to cause a problem up front. Do I change the action, or how do I deal with that early on so that it doesn't catch me later? I've got a 10-year lease on a piece of property. I make major decisions on it, not minor, day to day, and I don't include the landlord. What am I doing except going to improve a piece of land for 10 years and then maybe not get it renewed? You need to build those relationships, and all this is common sense. Nothing I've said here is not. A few environmental principles might have some new ideas, but it's just a framework to pull everything together to manage soft sciences. That's what what we've signed up to do, and it's not easy. A couple others, the biological one here, we'll ask a question, if we really want more of a species or less, will this increase it or decrease it, whatever the need is? But overall, we don't manage species, we try to manage habitat, complexity. Up there on the right, is it sustainable? Are we moving toward our future resource base? Or are we degrading our biological capital? And then we always can say at the end, how do I feel about this? It's real important. We don't throw that out. And going through those questions fairly quickly, formally, is sometimes what a group, a couple decision makers on a farm may need to do to make an important decision. But if your context is clear, the day-to-day work through the year, a lot of it you just know as you do things, yeah, this is taking us where we want to go. But once a year when you do your financial planning and you're really looking at enterprises and major choices, you need to sit down and more formally go through this. Once we make a choice, many times we're done and we move on. You don't want to just put a decision in the drawer and go away any more than you put your financial plan and forget about it till the end of the year. In case this choice is wrong, what's going to tell us first, and what are we going to do about it if it's wrong? That feedback loop is important, biologically, financially, or even with people. I've mentioned to you financial planning. We have kind of two major report cards after high school. Financial report cards, our balance sheet, and our income and expense statement. We trade, we use money to trade. We need to have those things in order to stay successful, to take care of ourselves. It's not selfish. It's how we then can help others. All the financial planning that we do in holistic management this financial plan is a forward planned profit and loss, income and expense statement. We usually do them to see where we were for accounting. We need to plan one forward for the next year and then monitor it every month to make sure we're on track. And we can do the records for the accountant and for us to help plan better the next year. Planning an income and expense statement forward that has a budget and a cash flow in it is the piece that we need to do better with land management operations. So you have marketing, you have tax planning, you have tax attorneys, you have all kinds of personnel, all things in a business plan. The piece that's all out there to get help from. The piece holistic management is enhancing is with the 3 environmental principles. What enterprises do we do to keep people on the land in their quality of life, in their context? Through an enhanced forward planning, income and expense statement. Land planning. You're going to start maybe now using more livestock to improve your rangelands, your pasture lands, or even your croplands. And mixing livestock with cover crops and annual monocultures. What is the infrastructure needed to support being able to put livestock back on farms? If it's like America, I know we've ripped out, as machinery got bigger, we rip out fences, take down barns, take away water troughs. How do we design to put that back best to help use the tool of animal impact and grazing? That's what the land planning is. It's truly infrastructure to enhance that tool being used better. A couple photos of it there. Grazing planning, I mentioned that earlier. Too many things to think about. If there was a gate right there, Richard, and there was animals coming through it, could you count them for me? Probably. What if I said, I want to count it's cows and calves. I want to know how many cows, how many calves. There's 300 coming through. Could you count them at the end and say there's this many of cows and this many calves? It's harder, right? 1, 2, 3 cows, 3 calves. That's 2. What if I said, oh, there's an odd donkey in there? Well, I also want to know how many are Herefords, how many are Angus. It's too much information. So a planning chart is where we lay down 10 or 20 or 30 things we need to remember. Last thing that goes on there is our livestock moves, so that we make sure they're in the right place at the right time. And the other underlying focus of this chart is it manages recovery. Oh, I'd like to go back there and I go check, it's not recovered. I'm in slower growth than I thought. Where am I going to go? Well, we've got a plan to go from and help see that. So that holistic planned grazing is rotational, can be dangerous because we've been at a set stocking and now we put them together and start to move. We get a little recovery. Oh, things look great. It never had that before. But if we don't know why we need to move because it's starting to regrow, or why we can't come back because it's not regrown, and have that in a chart where we can see the whole ranch ahead of time and then adapt through the summer, we can't keep track of that in a notebook and on a calendar, let alone how it overlays with, oh yeah, we're going to hay here, and this has flooding here, and we're trying to let this one go to seed. So the planned grazing allows you to look at the whole picture, put it all down there, and truly manage for recovery along with the other items. Monitoring, then we monitor. We've taken these actions on the land. What are the ecosystem processes doing? So once a year we'll look in a couple different ways we can do it, but we look at the land and we say the water cycle, the mineral cycle, the diversity of plant and animal communities, and the energy flow are all being more healthy, being more effective, we're becoming more healthy. That's the annual monitoring we do. Shall we summarize? I've told you about some key insights. The bottom 3 are related to the environment. The top one is that idea of holism. Got to look at the whole picture. We've got to understand how to read the ecosystem and read the land, look at it at the soil surface, and read those 4 ecosystem processes. And in the context of brittleness then, regularity of moisture. We need to understand the tools we can use on the land and the probable results that will come from using rest, fire, technology in many forms, or living organisms, us managing large ones mostly, to create what we are trying to create. We've got planning procedures to help with that, financial planning, make sure, yeah, we do need some more animals. Well, how do we buy them and when? The financial planning, how do we put in infrastructure for them? The grazing planning, where do they go? The land planning, how do we do infrastructure? There's a photo of all the items in that holistic management framework, but it's put up there in a linear fashion. It's just a list of everything. I don't expect you to read it from where you are, but it has most of what we talked about today. Picture you take that piece of paper and wrap it around a globe. You could go in anywhere and come out anywhere. It's all tied together. You're interested in financial planning. Well, let's start there and then we see how it relates to or when you need grazing planning or land planning. But what you always need is how do we decide things? How do we do the decision-making part? How do we have the right whole, decision makers, resource base and money? How do those decision makers create their context without specific actions in it? And then how do we test specific actions through context checks to get us there? That's always just really critical. That's the piece that finally made ranches and farms work. Alan would go to a ranch, they would get it coming along environmentally, he'd leave, come back 2 years later, and it all fallen apart because that true decision-making piece wasn't there to keep everybody in line, agreeing on a context, and then they all individually are making actions that take them there. We've talked about this mostly in management mode, but this could all be used also to help diagnose just what's going on a piece of land. It can help with what research should we research. Are we researching the right thing? And policy, those are just actions at a governmental level, city, county, state, or federal level. Those can be tested toward the context the people in the area want. Will this truly take us where we want to go? And in most cases, policies don't. But we can think about it that way. So there's Alan and his wife Jody, who wrote the textbook. That's the second edition. There's a third one that just came out last year that's a little clearer. Each one gets better. The mission, so this is the public relations statement, promoting the large-scale restoration of the world's grasslands. Healthier rangelands to then raise rangeland crops. Healthier grasslands or croplands that we've torn out of grasslands periodically to raise food. So what we do at SI is we're really about trying to empower others to heal the land and remove some of the barriers. So one of the reasons I'm here is we're working on a new land to market program where we have hopefully in the next year truly a regenerative seal that says this product from this land regenerated the land. It is improving no matter what practices were used to do it. And usually you need to have some kind of understanding like we've been talking about tonight to truly bring land back. So putting customers together with market partners, together with producers, so we can get that recognized and get a little better price for everybody is what it's all about. So there's no magic anymore in going from this to that if we understand some of the things that I talked about tonight. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't see it make it working. Don't expect to learn one night like anything. It takes some effort. I would say, though, to tie it back to what I said at the beginning, have you ever wished you could have lived at a point in time of great change and beyond that maybe you could play a role? Boy, if you're in agriculture today, we have a great need, and we've got some answers that have come together, and you can really make a difference. Not just for you and your family, but for those around you. And how about for the kids and grandkids? Any questions? I think I went a little bit over my allotted time. But
That was brilliant. Thank you, Byron. questions, and this is a chance to ask Byron the burning question that you've been wanting to ask an expert.
Okay, can I start?
Yes.
So, what I've seen over the last couple of years is people that are grazing grasses that we would call actually in senescence, so it's at the seeding stage or beyond. And generally, and it's a big bone of contention, because mine and half has not been to any of this, and he's not really sit down and understood it. And he said, you know, you can't get cows to grow on dead grass. But we're seeing that this is actually happening, and it is working. And I was at a soil health thing with Joel Williams a few months ago, and I know he made a statement that fungi in the soil actually prefers starches in the old grass.
What in the soil? Fungi. Okay.
Prefers starch as opposed to the sugars of the younger grass. And I asked him, could this be the key to why actually cattle are actually doing better and the soil is doing better? And he said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you any idea?
No clue. I know that Alan is famous for saying the soil and biology is more complex than we can even begin to picture. And to think we can understand it is really beyond what we can do today, maybe for a long time. And so what we need to do is do trials and tests and watch the land and read it and see if it's responding in the way we want. Because we don't know. We just don't know how all that's connected together. Now that said, yeah, I think a more mature grass may help get the bacterial fungi relationship more balanced. I know from my own experience with my grass-fed direct marketed beef that I could do better on more mature grass than I thought. If it's too young, it's too much protein, they change over anyway and they waste. But on the other hand, if it's old and really gone to seed, you're not going to get the animal performance on that, and we shouldn't pretend we would. So if you're looking at the grass, maybe it needs a little more recovery than you've been giving it. But you can't do that at the expense of animal performance when your income depends on animal performance. So you've got to balance the two. And it's probably good to have a variety of everything going on. Every pasture should probably be able to fully go to seed. I mean fully to seed periodically every few years. But mostly what we want to stop is that we're grazing leaf blades that aren't even half grown. We want them to be as grown as they could be on as many species as we can, at the same time managing for the income we need off the top, off the animals eating it. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is guys are talking about foliage, and so stuff that has gone to seed and been left for winter usage, and again, they're extending their grazing season quite considerably and still getting good performance, especially when you've got more native breeds.
Well, I think that's true. What's native and not anymore, it may not even matter. It's a hard discussion. It's a very lively discussion out there. We can battle our whole lives. I'm talking to your native comment for just a minute. Getting rid of something that theoretically wasn't there in the past, and maybe it wasn't. But maybe that's not so bad. I mean, if we want to stay in business, maybe it's hard to get back to just what was native. I do think animals do better on a little more mature grass that's got a better starch balance. As far as it carrying through the winter, where it'll, you know, in these seasonal rainfall areas, what you grew this winter or summer and didn't eat, it'll last 2 or 3 years, and it's still got value to it. But where you have so much humidity, it doesn't. It's hard to make it last one winter. What we're finding then is that you've got to, as people get healthier, better grasses, and forages. When I say grass, I mean all kinds of forages. Their plants are lasting a little longer through the winter before they rot, and I don't know why, but it fits nature. We're doing it better. Maybe they should. How'd the wildlife survive through the winter in the past? They did, even here.
Can I ask a question? Is that right? I'm not a farmer, so
Good.
But I live in
This
the
makes
north,
more sense many times to non-farmers. They don't have to kind of let go of some old things.
Northeast Carlisle. One of the big problems in all the fields around us seems to be rushes. Now, is there a regime that will allow rushes other than drainage to you're talking about, because the animals don't eat it? It has no practical use as far as one knows. Is that a problem you come across?
Oh, sure. And every part of the world has this different plant.
Okay.
It's usually a matter of low stock density, low stocking rate, and even though grazing is happening, which means some animal impact, those two tools are going on at some level, but you've got partial rest still going on in the pasture. Horses especially, if you put one horse out on a couple hectares for all summer, a couple acres, by the end of the summer, you know, it's like these golf course greens where they graze, you know, it does this, right? They keep going back to what they like, and they keep ignoring what's getting more rank. And usually it's that same thing even with other livestock of some kind. You're still using partial rest is usually the cause of whatever can come in there that they don't like taking over. It's not that it has a mind of its own to take over, it's our management. That's a general answer. To the specifics of the rush, we talked a lot today with our group about in most ecoregions, like in this area, the land can be in several states. It could be a cropland, it could be shrubs, it could be trees, it could be a couple combinations, it could be grassland at a couple levels. Trying to get clear on those states it could be in, and to your question exactly, what tools can we use to move it from one to another, or what tools are we using without even realizing it that are letting them go from one to another is what we're trying to get clearer on in each area. Because it's a management issue. It's not the rush is just taking over. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. It'll be fine.
For now. Martin?
Yeah, thank you for your already said all that. Going back to the bison, and talking about their stomachs being the biological processes, it struck me that it's a sort of comment really, but maybe brutal, but when you're listening to the news or just young things, people come out with all sorts of outlandish comments about veganism, vegetarianism solving problems, and not realising, I was going to say organic systems, but I can't say that to you, but I'll say for organic systems on the planet. And
There's nothing wrong with organic. It's a great step. It just isn't enough to save the soil and water.
We'll come back to that one. No, there's this, but what I mean, it struck me that talking about bison and their stomachs doing this, it's kind of quite a nice image that actually might reach people as a general way of putting something across, because you say something like, yes, but grassland can sequester lots of carbon, anything you say, it's always, no, animals bad, is the general perception, or a reasonable perception that prevails in many areas. And it's so misleading, and it's counterproductive to bringing everybody together to start going in good directions. And so I thought enhancing the little story about getting people to realise what animals actually do, and the bison in their stomachs. You see what I'm getting at?
It's
I can't explain it very well.
People would come to the farmer's market. That's where I'd sell my beef, which I did, by the way, it was my marketing program. It was hard for a beef producer to make a living in the farm market like a vegetable person. But they would ask about the beef, and some would say, well, I'm not a meat eater, and you say, fine, do you drink water? We're managing catchments, we're managing watersheds, we're trying to stop floods and droughts, and we're trying to, it doesn't matter. Alan's got a pretty good article. He's got a website or a blog called Alan Savory Uncensored. And he's got topics on there, and he's got an article taking on, he actually talked to a bunch of vegans and vegetarians and got their view on it so he could answer. It's a pretty good article, but he's real clear saying that if you truly don't want to eat meat for a spiritual or, you know, a reason that makes sense to you that way, that's fine. But if you're doing it for an ethical reason, somehow you think it's related to land degradation, it's unsound. And this is why, is what he talks about here. Yeah, those animals provide a service of decay. And remember that continuum, it's not just 1 or 10, it's a whole continuum. And we find that most of the land, all the way from the 10 into the 3, are truly enhanced by, if you're trying to maintain pasture. If you're in a very low rainfall, brittle area, that animals are what it takes to go from bare ground like this floor up to rangeland. If here you're trying to keep a forest back to a pasture, animals do that well, and they keep the pasture better than if you did it through just technological methods. You had a question. You wanna revisit your other one?
No, I want to start permaculture. 'Cause
Permaculture.
What are we talking about? I mean, because there's a big permaculture movement around, yeah. What's the relationship of the Savoury Institute with permaculture?
Really very good.
Yeah.
Permaculture I'm not personally know a lot about it, so I know what I've learned from others. I don't have personal experience with it, but my understanding is it's really geared towards small acreages and how to stack, vertically integrate, make things very healthy on pretty much usually a labor intensive, and we have to have livestock to do the large landscapes. We can't do them all on that scale. The other thing with permaculture that I've been told, same with several other things out there, is what holistic management is bringing is the holism picture. How do you make choices? When do you do what? Who are the decision makers? What's the context? What are these checks? It brings that piece into the table to help enhance that. Yeah, permaculture is good thinking. Absolutely. Wolf?
Alan had a very good picture of that. He was asked, I think he was in London in 2014. He was asked that question, and he said, well, as I see it, if permaculture is the cloth hangers, holistic management is the closet.
Okay. Others?
As the holistic management is to taking the whole, the permaculture is the techniques you take out or in as you need them.
It's another tool in the kit bag. In other
Yes.
words. Yeah.
If you can get a magazine that'll show you lots of things to do, buy this, sell this, use this, those are all good ideas, but do they fit me in our context today, given our place in our financial plan? Is it the first thing we should spend on? That's what it helps do.
Do you think holistic management has a lot to offer us as a nation post-Brexit?
Well,
Sorry.
we in our country have a lot of farm policies from the 1930s that are still there. So, and Australia had made a choice, I don't know how many years ago, to get rid of there. So whether you've got a lot of subsidies or not, or different farm policies that things like Brexit affect, for me to make my choices better in my situation, with my context, is gonna help me. If at a higher level, those choices on policy could be made in a context that might help. But I'm not sure if you're getting how that'll affect the individual farmer.
Where I was coming from is exactly Alan's statement up there. If we could actually share that basic fundamental principle of the photosynthetic processes creating wealth. Just a really good example, because there's some faces I don't recognise, was Joel Salatin's work, which takes this in a non-ritual context to another level. So, how many of you here would like to be able to double your grass or your land efficiency? For example, what I'd love to see is the cattle moving, and I really desperately want to do this, I just don't have enough hours in the day yet, is I want to have chicken coming behind the cattle. Because I know I have an issue with nitrogen, and everyone has said that, that's key to really ramping up fertility using holistic management fast. And what it will do is if I can find, please God help me find someone that would like a farm business, I would so much love chicken to follow my cattle because I know the effect it's going to have, and I would effectively be employing someone to sell eggs or chicken in my local area. That's just one aspect of vertical integration. I have others with the framework I have. I could easily employ 2 or 3 other people, but I don't just have enough hours in the day yet to get it going. If I can do it, you can do it too.
Okay, and relate that to Brexit?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
In
Okay.
local economy, the soil is the foundation of our local economy.
So, Alan does a good talk on organizations. We can have people within an organization become very supportive and help us, but they could come or go. Organizations seem to get a life of their own, and they cannot change until enough of us change to allow them to change. So all the work we do to change an organization is usually pretty fruitless. And we really need to get enough critical mass to where the beef organizations, the cattle organizations, the government natural resources organizations are safe to change, that they truly can't until our critical mass is enough. But to the whole Brexit question or things that would affect policy, we just roll that into our knowledge of what we do in our situation to help us go forward. And in your case, it might mean, will it mean lower subsidies for some things? A change of income streams, that's what it will in our country. So you learn to adapt to that. We can try to affect those policies, but meanwhile we have to survive. Yes.
What I struggle with is that they have the policies, which is okay, fair enough, you can then try and work to follow those policies, but they actually tell you with prescriptions how you're
Right.
supposed to achieve them, and they're not holistic, and they probably don't actually achieve what they
No.
think they want to achieve.
A mass solution doesn't work for everybody.
No.
Everybody's got their own situation. So ideally, if they had a context, they want the country to be prosperous and grow, and et cetera, and what policies will we do to help create the country being a productive resource base, they would then enhance actions or policies that affect all of you, that would allow you to have that freedom to meet your own individual needs. To me, that's the only way it could work. So we can work to affect those. Meanwhile, prescribed grazing like we have in our country, with our Natural Resources Conservation Service, it doesn't work always, because you can't, one, they don't understand the concept of brittleness, so they don't know what the results will be in different areas, and it doesn't fit a whole lot of
They put
things.
down dates without knowing what the works.
Right, we're just like reductionist science, we're doing reductionist management, and they're doing reductionist policy. We need to become holistic managers and holistic policy developers if you truly want a democratic society where the decision making's at the lower level. Obviously, if you don't, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Or if the higher ones don't, even if you do, if they're in control, it's the same thing. So and that discussion relates all on one farm too, doesn't it? Among generations or employees and employers sometimes. So you're trying to work your way through that. We could get it pretty well with this process on the farm level or the ag business level. Yes.
Just thinking about degrading soil, like our farm, it's a lot of it's green pasture, and you say we don't put artificial fertiliser on, and we're just grazing it with the sheep, but we're just taking green leaf all the time. There's no brown leaf, and so there's no decaying of the leaf going into the ground. There will be trampling. Are we degrading the soil in your view, or is that?
Well, that's what you would measure through some ecological monitoring. However, I mean, just it's okay to eat brown if it could last through the winter and have a fresh bite in the spring that's brown and green, helps that rumen transfer from hay to new spring growth. But even though you're always eating green, the key is most of it recovering its leaf blade, and the stuff they're not eating, it's going on the ground and decaying. And probably fairly fast where it turns brown in this climate. The real key for you is, am I feeding the ground fast enough to keep the plants coming? Do I have enough litter? In some places of the world, we're just trying to get enough to cover the ground, to get it shaded and get life coming a little bit. Here, you've got enough canopy already, enough regular humidity. Are we taking too much and not feeding the ground enough? And we look at the ground and it seems to have a lack of litter, but that's because whatever we're putting down is decaying so fast, we could actually put a little more. Not specific answers, are they? I'm trying to give you principles, because we really don't have answers. An answer for me might not fit your place for you, but some guiding principles I think are okay.
I think it's quite difficult to express what you're trying to say there, because you're working globally rather than Cumbria.
Exactly. But Cumbria is a non-brittle leaning, fairly productive area. And we have those around the world and they're all similar.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeding off what's been said. We did a course yesterday and we understood soils. We also understood how the holistic programme could work within Cumbria, and the comment from over there about Brexit is very, very important for the upland farmer within Cumbria, because he's not so much got to reinvent the wheel, but he's got to address his business plan for the future without a subsidy that's been of substance as we've been used to. We know we're going to get less, but we've also got to take that factor into the budget and say, well, what can we do to farm in a different manner to sustain the same sort of level of income? Native cattle were mentioned over there, and I totally agree. We've got to take a step back to 1940s farming, but we've got to recap it with the business plan of 2017. And it is possible because I'm doing it. And not to be disrespectful to the farmer, but he always did what Dad did and what grandfather did. You know, if his dad put fertiliser on, well, the son's going to do likewise, because he really hasn't looked outside of his box. And that is what a lot of people have to do. And I take my hat off to you saying what you are saying, because I feel this is a way forward. It's a new way forward for a lot of us. But really, it's just what's been going on all along. Like I said, we're not reinventing the wheel, we're just going back to the basics. And it is bearing a lot more fruits than we really think, because we cut out that fertiliser, we enhance production naturally, we go back to the native animal that can convert natural types of grasses better than what the modern day continental animal can, who is relying heavily on high sugar content grasses, high proteins. There is an incidence where the native animal will have, and it's an answer to your question, it has a different type of digestive system and juices in there to ferment and create that than what a Belgian blue or a Limousin would have. So we're also enhancing the Joe Public's health status by producing something that isn't invaded by man-made substance. If you follow what I'm trying to say.
So I wouldn't disagree with anything you said there.
No.
And what holistic management is and is bringing is a process, a decision-making framework to help make choices to survive. It's not bringing specific prescriptive answers. Every action is a potential, but it may or may not fit.
No, it's not going to fit everybody, because they just haven't looked outside of the box
Right.
yet. But they will.
Yeah. So after world,
We've been governed so long, and there's a
Yeah.
comment there about rushes and land management. There's another comment here. It's a group called Natural England. It should be called Unnatural England. And they really, I've got a meeting with them next week, I'm not joking. They are going to get some serious telling off.
so what I found is whether you're, well, we'll just take like a farmer or a ecologist or environmentalist who might have very opposite views, they're usually arguing about actions. And if you can get them to agree on a context, the quality of life they both want with no actions in there, and if they're reasonable people who will discuss and just dialogue with people they disagree with, then you can discuss actions. And then when you overlay that discussion of actions, or underlay it maybe with the understanding of some of these ecological principles that Alan has put together through himself and others, all of a sudden you've got a way to, in many cases, move forward and decide how to meet both needs.
That's exactly what we're doing. There are organisations that we work with that are lobbying into Parliament as to how we're going to manage the uplands and retain
Yeah. Yeah.
local heritage.
I would never come to an area and pretend to tell you what to do or know your area. But I do know there's certain principles that work. And I would go back to the policy and say, I didn't mean to belittle policy. We need to work at that and function with that. We have to. In fact, we have to get policy changed, or no matter how much each of us does on our individual farms, policy will probably not help.
But there's
Unless it
none
changes.
better than the traditional farmer to lay down what the status quo should be.
Who developed all the breeds of cattle in the world? Farmers or scientists and researchers? Farmers. Yeah. We could come up with these answers.
But we were governed by production. We were paid to produce.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
this
after
has led to
World War
where
II,
we're
they
in
came
the
to you and
aftermath.
said, we've got fertilizer. And produce that instead of bomb. So there was a shift then, you know, today, my dad, my granddad may have done fertilizer, but about 3 generations back, that was a shift to move there. And we know that long term, that extra nitrogen doesn't work, and we all know all those things. Yeah, it is in very many ways a shift back to being common sense decisions within the context we want, as opposed to decisions just not knowing where they're gonna take us.
Yeah, I got used to this, so it's good for a second. These people say nice things. The beginning bit, where you started saying, getting back to Brexit, sorry about this. The thing that might happen, one scenario, is that actually Britain in a sense, I see Brexit as Britain isolating itself from a very good partner, okay? I don't want to start an argument there. And so we're losing opportunities, and in some ways we might isolate ourselves. There's also, in terms of food, we're going to make deals with other people, and we may not get the quality of food into the country. That's one argument, there's those kind of things. But the other side of it is, on the positive side, and it is a possible scenario, is that people might start realising that the farmer and the stuff that he produces is actually quite valuable, and there's very few farmers, and there's an awful lot of people in this country who might be quite hungry, and so farming could change quite seriously. But I think it's also going to require some thinking more along the lines that you're thinking, in order to get farmers to come together, to realise the real potential in connection with how we can produce properly, traditionally, and actually increase our food production healthily, all those things. But it's another scenario that actually it may be the coming of age of farming and food, because it is fundamentally the most, well, and in connection with land. Sorry, right.
No, not sorry, that's how we'd all like to see it.
I think it's just a turning point, isn't it? We've gone up so far, we're either going to go left or we're going to go right. You know, whichever way we turn, you still got to go back to not reinventing the wheel, but go back to basics. The Upton farm never produced fat animal, and they only started producing fat animal when fertilisers and feeds became more important. And then subsidies came in where you were paid to actually finish that animal, and you were subsidised with it. And then when Agenda 2000 came, we lost that hill view subsidy and the suckle cow subsidy, then it crashed. And ever since then, it's been struggling to get back up again, because we've never just had enough money to do it. And you can see of late that lamb price this week has just dropped like a stone. Goes way up. You know,
Lamb or
it's
land?
It's unbelievable. Sorry?
Lamb.
Lamb.
So yeah, it speaks volumes really that you should just go back to nature. We've done it. I mean, Alan, Chris and Sheila have been out, they've seen our farm and how we operate, and the figures are there. We're not buying any fertiliser, we're not buying as much feed. The feed that comes in is for maintenance and welfare anyway. I'll set the dairy aside, but the rest of the farm is just under natural management, and has been for the last 80 odd years. And if you go beyond the 80 odd years, well, it was just naturally managed anyway.
So, a couple of thoughts that come to me, as you try to reach out to others, choosing to do the actions you've chosen are yours, and somebody else may not want to do them, even though they need to. You might know that's really the ones that truly work. If you can reach out to people wherever they are, meet them where they are in their either financial or grazing or decision making, let them decide the actions they need to do, and they may come around and see some of these other things. Every cow can't finish grass fed unless you give it 5 or 6 years. Every piece of land can't finish an animal. Some of those realizations, every farmer doesn't have the skills or the interest to finish an animal. there will probably be some regional finishing as we go from what was a subsidy program, and our country's the same, to finish animals on land that really couldn't, to needing to do it more naturally. But helping people come to that on their own terms and make their decision and transition is critical. We're gonna be at transition so fast because somebody thinks we shouldn't go out of business. That's not in our context. So it may be totally reasonable that you need to transition. You've got to wean off something as you transfer into something else.
If you go into the transitional stage, now the average farmer, the age of the average farmer is 60. He's never going to change to 60.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very uphill,
Yeah.
very steep climb we've got to take to change. But there is a realisation there, and the facts and the figures are just staring us in the face.
Yeah, so you really respect the farmer who's a well-seasoned farmer and experienced who was willing to change, because we all know how hard it is to change. Many times that change won't happen until it's a new ownership or new generation. Well, so you're good. Yes.
On your world map before, you showed three areas that the soils are very degenerated in the world.
Yeah.
Why is it them areas particularly? Is it
It's mostly where it's been, if it's rangelands where they've been overgrazed, or if it's croplands, it's where they've just been cropped so long and they're degenerating the biological capital.
is that say the UK compared to Australia or America? Like our soils are maybe not too bad yet.
Yeah, they're certainly not. We have parts of the middle of our country that are very good soils, just like a lot of places in your country. But when we've lost half of them in 100 years or more, that's not building soil. Is that
Climate? A lot to do with climate.
well, it may have something to do with climate. You know, I know that I could go outside and see soils that are bare, that are not producing what they could, or they have moss on them, or the plant density is not what it could be, or the plants aren't as healthy as they could be. I know I can change that. And if I can sequester some more carbon and make it healthier living soil, I can do something about that. On the bigger picture of climate change, okay, it's changing or not, that's one question. Then if it's changing, is it human caused or not, and to what level? We could be in that argument all day, and I'm happy to do that, personal level with anybody. But as far as business-wise with holistic management, we have ways we can improve what's going on out there. We know that. We know we don't have to burn as much. Look, one acre fire puts up as much pollution as about 6,000 cars. So are we addressing that, or are we only addressing Toyota Prius? And I'm not putting that down at all. I'm just saying there's a lot of things to consider. Who knows who of us could handle that whole big climate picture? That's a lot of us working at it in a lot of ways. So meanwhile, I know still with agriculture we put a lot of carbon in the air. I don't know what's too much or too little. I mean, I could say I don't mind being a little warmer where I live, 10,000 feet, but that may not fit you where you live. The point to me is, what can I do in my situation to make the land more productive? Because if it's not holding water, it's not producing living soil, then I'm not doing my care of that land, whether it's a communal land in Africa tribe, a Navajo nation in the U.S., or a private holding here or in the U.S. There's some personal thoughts on that.
Climate change is a context, though, surely, is it?
Sure.
For the management decisions you want to
It
take.
sure may be.
So therefore, what the body of opinion that is coming back is will give an indication as to what the future climate is likely to be, which then informs as to how you are going to manage your land better
It may
because you
inform
can
policy
forward
and it may
planning.
inform
isn't
me
it?
in my
Yeah.
land. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't throw that out.
No.
Can I just follow that up, saying, but the first year I did ecological monitoring on our farm, bear in mind, most of it is next to the Thames, one half floods in, the other floods out, and when we have major rainfall in the upper Thames Basin, I can tell you for sure we are going to flood. No matter how good my particular water cycle is, because there's so much power in the upper Thames Basin, I will flood. But from the ecological monitoring, in fact, the three of us came to the conclusion I had potential for 300% increase in productivity of my grassland. And in year 2, already about 150% in some of those paddocks. Please. But you don't know until you know they'll say you don't know what you don't know until you've learned it? I can't tell you all these things, but I know the second I looked down in those fields, I went through it bit by bit by bit. That was a huge moment.
And if you've got stronger plants on those riverbanks, when it floods and the neighbors are willing to give you their water and their soil, you won't lose as many plants, and maybe you can filter out and stop some of their soil. Until you can affect management of the whole catchment. And I guess the Brexit question, the climate change question, you know, my only answer there I was trying to say was there's sometimes I'm not the decision maker, I'm a resource base at those levels, and I can influence others, but I can't make choices. Where I can make them is on what I'm directly managing, and I can do that with all that in my context to the best of my ability. But where can I best spend my time to do the changes I need to do? That's the individual choice we all have to make.
Am I allowed to ask one more question? Is that all right? I'm sorry. But something struck me that New Zealand actually is a fascinating case study, I think, because it has not a dissimilar climate to what we've got here. And I happened to visit New Zealand because I've always wanted to 2 years ago, and I was appalled by a lot of what I saw of the management of the land. How do you you've seen New Zealand? Can you relate their experience to our experience?
I have not been there yet. We have a for-profit side of Savory Institute that takes investor money and buys land and manages it as a return, as an alternative investment. We have a 60,000 acre ranch in New Zealand, west of Christchurch, practicing holistic management, and so I hear what's going on down there. They are good at rotational grazing. Here's some generalizations. They developed some good fencing systems to move animals around. In general, plants are not allowed to recover, so you've got a high level of protein and very good animal performance, but you're not building capital, you're losing capital on the land, and hence erosion, even though it is fairly non-brittle and somewhat, like you say, it's semi-efficient. But there's room for improvement. Some of the areas with deeper soils and more moisture and more regular moisture are more forgiving. You can treat land bad and it doesn't go downhill too bad, you can bring it back quicker. You could actually improve your land here faster than some of the drier seasonal areas of the world. What takes them 15 years to do, you might be able to do in 2 or 3. The other thing to realize is that you're not up to the production level if you want more production that you think you can meet. We're used to looking across land. We need to go down and look at the soil surface looking down. Is the plant density there? And here we don't have a lot of bare ground. But is the plant density there? Are the community dynamics there, the different species? And is the energy flow there? And are we able to walk across a pasture and actually get to drag our feet, because we don't just have these tall seed stalks, we've got such leaf blade coming out because they're so healthy. Before they send up a seed stalk, the volume is really there because the soil just has bounty to give. There's easier to produce more here, quicker than in some areas.
Should the soil feel spongy when you walk across it, like?
And not because it's waterlogged or boggy area, but because it's that will do it. No,
Because of the litter and the compost.
Yeah, you've got litter, you've got good soil structure, you've got good bulk density, it's sequestering carbon and everything else. Carbon's the one today that we're most like to hear and talk
I have a
about.
little bit like that, it's going around the circle where we're looking.
So there's what the rest could look like.
Yeah, I know, I've seen it.
All right. Well, I wanted to throw a lot at you of what I've learned. I wanted to give you a whole picture of what holistic management is. I don't mind if you leave with questions or thinking. I hope I haven't offended or confused anybody too bad, and I really do appreciate your time and interest. And I'm just a visitor who comes and goes. You've got a Savory Institute hub here that's offering training and connecting with all the other hubs around the world. There's 30 now. We started 3 years ago. We're doing about 10 a year, trying to get up to 100 to help people have this information. So thank you.
We really appreciate you doing this tonight. even especially with all the jet lag. So thank you
Ooh,
so
that was
much.
a day ago. I didn't have that.
And I want to appreciate all of you for coming tonight. And as Byron said, if you have questions, please contact us. There's some information on the back table about our hub. And if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, there's a newsletter sign up back there. And we will be running courses this fall together with Caroline in Cumbria and other places in the UK. So if you want to find out about those, subscribe to our newsletter. Anything else that I should add?
There's some tea and coffee left, or
There's
the
some
bar's
tea and coffee.
probably still
The
open.
bar is open. And the reason that Byron is here is he's working with our hub and then the Nordic hub after this to develop ecological outcome verification. So it will be a system that enables the farmer to know, am I regenerating soil or am I degrading soil, and to troubleshoot and understand what more could I do to actually regenerate my land, to regenerate a healthy sponge that is spongy to walk on. Yeah, so that's what we're working on this week together with Byron. So thank you very much.
Thank you.